Welcome to our presentation. My name is Dr. Vivian Rath, and I'm here with my colleagues, Dr. Sarah Kift and Dr. Fiona Smith. And we are here to speak to you from the Trinity College Dublin Forum for Disabled Staff and Postgraduate Students about our upcoming conference report titled Shifting Sands, Reasonable Accommodations in the Post-COVID Environment.
We chose the title Shifting Sands because so much about this particular time, COVID and post-COVID, is unclear. We're in a landscape that is defined by the push and pull of new opportunities and potential, but also new barriers. We're not on solid ground. Expectations have changed, and the culture of how, when, and where we work has changed and is changing. There are new unknowns. The focus of the Shifting Sands conference was chosen in response to concerns expressed by disabled postgraduate students and staff in higher education. The three primary concerns were a lack of clarity around rights to reasonable accommodations, becoming particularly evident in the return to in-person work. New challenges in accessing reasonable accommodations post-COVID. The new landscape needs to be re-navigated, but some of the major issues have been recast. And there is a risk that the very real problems of access have become masked or disregarded as work practices have and continue to change. Having acquired a disability and not being sure of their rights to reasonable accommodations. This can be entirely new terrain for a person who is already dealing with a newly acquired disability while trying to find out what paths, options, and reasonable accommodations are open.
There are three main recommendations that came from the panel discussion at the end of this conference. The first recommendation is on the employment life cycle. It was felt that it was important to develop and implement, in consultation with disabled people, reasonable accommodations, policies, procedures, and recording mechanisms to ensure consistency across institutions. This would enable greater cross-institutional mobility, both nationally and at the EU level, something that traditionally created significant hurdles for disabled people. It was also felt that it was important to create a clear and coherent pathway to enable disabled people to request and obtain reasonable accommodations without undue burden and stigmatization. Additionally, it was felt that it was important to assure awareness of reasonable accommodations and provisions in an integrated part of the onboarding process for all staff. Next slide, please. The second recommendation was around representation. It was felt that it was important to have disabled people involved in the creation of effective governance structures to respond effectively to stakeholder input. Additionally, disability policies need to be recognized as a priority under the EDI agenda and endorsed and promoted by senior management. Also, development of and support by higher education of disabled employee networks that advocate for and support employees with various questions and institutional community development.
The third and final recommendation under our themes was fear of disclosure. It was acknowledged that COVID-19 had resulted in a more inclusive and empathetic culture and work practices in higher education. Yet disabled people were still very concerned about disclosing their disability. We recommend that a universal design approach should be taken across the institution, resulting in a move towards an inclusive working environment, thus reducing the need for disclosure of disability in some instances. We will recommend reviewing the disclosure protocols to identify how to reduce the burden on disabled staff associated with disclosure. We recommend that the language of disclosure be considered and a review be undertaken and make a move towards a more inclusive approach and a move away from the deficit-laden word disclosure. Finally, trust is very, very important, and people must know where their information is going when they disclose and what it's going to be used for. Finally, in conclusion, we're recommending, following our third conference, that A rights-based approach needs to be taken, where the lived experience and evidence is used to drive all decision-making, and that disabled people are fully involved in that decision-making process. We would like to see a partnership approach in whereby disabled people are in partnership with the institution to ensure that an inclusive environment is built for all. You can find our report on the Equality Trinity College Dublin Equality website or by emailing ratv@tcd.ie.